Okay, this is MetalDisciple.com's Metalheads Podcast, and this is Buke, and I'm flying solo tonight. I am joined by Cam Pipes from my favorite group, 3 Inches of Blood. What's going on, Cam?
Oh, just hang out.
Just hanging out, huh?
Yeah.
I just got done watching, first started off, I just got done watching my Capitals inch past the Avalanche there, so I just have to ask you to start.
Okay.
Are you happy with the Vancouver season so far?
Yeah, I've got the game on pause right now against Anaheim because they're going to overtime, so I'm just waiting on that. I've missed pretty much the whole game, being out all night, but listening to bits and pieces on the radio.
I'm not going to spoil it, and I'm not going to take you a lot from it.
No problem, man.
Quick.
It's on pause, so I can watch it whenever.
Hey, I'm to say, working evening shift, I watch every single game on DVR. So for
awesome.
the listeners out there, I just want to, you guys have heard me saying numerous times that 3 Inches of Blood, in the 20 years or so I've been listening to metal, is my favorite group in metal next to Opeth that's come out. You want to give a little history for yourself about the band and the type of sound that you guys have for maybe people who haven't heard?
Well, the best way to describe us really is we're a heavy metal band. Just
that's
pure and simple. I mean, that's really the best way to describe it. Our influences are very classic and traditional. So that's I think that's what you'll hear if you've never heard us before. So it's really the best way to describe it. We don't. I mean, people have lumped us into their made-up subgenres or whatever, but. I think just
now, Cam, for those who haven't heard, your voice is the best in metal, in my opinion. High pitched, one that you associate with like Rob Halford, King Diamond. Has that something that throughout the years you've had to try and carve out your own name, or people just say, "Oh, you're just trying to be the next King"?
No, no one's ever accused me of trying to be like somebody. I just get a lot of people saying, "Oh, you remind me of this guy," or "Are you influenced by this guy because you sound a lot like him?" Yeah. And so no one's ever tried to like call me out and call me some kind of imitator, which is awesome, but and it's equally awesome that definitely compared to guys like Rob Halford or King Diamond and guys like that, guys who I love.
Was that something when you first started singing you just naturally went with?
I guess I didn't try and emulate anybody. That's just kind of how it came out. I just developed it on my own. When I first joined the band, I was really not very well trained. I mean, I've never had training, but I guess I've never really sung in a band like this before. It was just something I could kind of do. Just kind of driving in my car, singing along to, aforementioned bands, King Diamond being like a big one, actually. Just hitting those screams on songs off Abigail were kind of like my favorites. So, it's something that in the early days of the band I just kind of developed and worked on myself and found my own voice, as it were. And I think over the albums, especially compared to our first record, Battle Cry, to Advance and Vanquish, I think there's a very huge jump in the way my vocals sound.
I can hear it, yes.
And I think that just came with time and playing more shows and collectively just getting better at writing songs. So knowing what I had on my hands and knowing what to do with it were things I had to learn.
Yeah. Now, when you joined, when you guys formed, when you started putting out Battle Cry Under a Winter Sun, were you one of the first members with the group and the guys then?
No. I came into it. They hadn't really been active for that long, but they were all guys I knew. Mm-hmm. We were all living in the same city at the time, and eventually, they just kind of got wind of me being able to do falsetto vocals, and back then, like 3 Inches of Blood was very heavily into the, gallopy kind of Iron Maiden style. Mm-hmm. And no one, at least in our neck of the woods, and from what I can tell, like in Canada or maybe even the U.S.
No one here in the States around me that I could think of.
Yeah, like this was like late 90s. Like no one was really doing that. Like and no new bands were doing that anyway. So Jamie Hooper was the only vocalist. He was, a hardcore, screamer kind of guy. Like he can do falsettos. Like you can hear it in some of the like really like way older stuff. But he didn't really lean towards that too much. So I think with what they were playing with this, kind of gallopy, new wave of British heavy metal style, being friends with them, they heard like, oh, I heard you can do falsettos. Like, do you want to do some guest vocals on a song on our demo? So I was like, okay, cool. And after they heard it, they were like, oh, that's great. Do you want to do it on the whole demo? So I was like, all right. Do you want to give me some direction on what you want me to put in there? And they're like, oh, just do whatever you want, pretty much. So I sort of consulted Jamie. I'm like, okay, what are the lyrics of the song? And more or less, I just almost doubled what he was already doing,
okay,
but just with what I was doing. And it was fun, just laying that down. I thought the idea of being in the band would be really cool, but I didn't want to like step on anyone's toes. I'm like, well, they've already got a singer. They probably don't want 2 singers. And then eventually one day they're like, hey, do you want to join the band as a second vocalist? I was like, yeah, totally. By that point, a lot of them had moved to Vancouver from Victoria, where we were at the time. I'd been living in Victoria for 12 years or so, and that was kind of, I wasn't doing anything musically at the time, and I was just like, this is my out. I need to get out of this city. And so I made the leap and moved to Vancouver with the rest of them.
Unless you could skate, maybe you could be like, a tough guy role,
Yeah, and I couldn't skate. Like
oh, come on.
A lot of them did. Actually, most of those guys who were in the band with me at the time, they did skateboard, but not me. I used to, back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I did a little bit when I was a kid, but I never was really very good at it. I still have that old skateboard that I grew up with, but it's cracked. But I still maintain it just for like memories,
So then the band moves, and that's right around the 2003, 2002 time, or is this still the 90s?
I joined the band in early 2001, and by that point, most of them had been living in Vancouver for a little while. It was just myself and the bass player were still in Victoria, but we both moved over to Vancouver about the same time, and then we just kind of went at it and just started playing shows and in Vancouver area, and eventually got onto booking our own tours and doing it DIY for a little while, and things just kind of happened,
and then where this is where you guys burst on my scene. Correct me if I'm wrong, 2004, is it? Advance and Vanquish comes out?
That's right.
And, us as metalheads, I speak for a lot of us, when there's so many bands out there and so many albums out, while they're good, it just sounds the same. Advance and Vanquish was the first time I had heard you guys, and it was instantly, and I've only had a couple, it was that instant you put it on, and you're like, holy shit. This is amazing.
Well, thank you.
Did you guys realize in the metal world that little, something different that you guys had touched off here with this record? Really?
Well, I don't know if we maybe realized it. I think obviously there was something that we must have known was special about it, because Roadrunner Records was calling and other labels were taking interest. So we're like, oh, okay. We had done like a few tours at that point, including one fairly high profile tour in the UK, which maybe garnered us a little bit more attention from labels. But we knew the songwriting was getting better and we were progressing, and I think things just kind of happened within the span of a couple of years from, all right, we're doing some tours, and we never really thought we would go very far with it. We certainly didn't rule out the possibility, and we certainly were into taking opportunities. And but all of a sudden, we're signed to Roadrunner Records, and we're recording an album with a really well-known producer in Neil Kernan, who his resume speaks for himself. And we were like, this was all like really new to us, and things happen the way they do, and you just kind of got to roll with it. And it's all a matter of whether you're equipped to handle it and whether that's what you want to do. And most of us were wanting to, 2004 was a very pivotal time for us. A lot happened in that year. Some good, some very. I wouldn't say bad necessarily, but very strenuous, and stressful. A lot of things happened.
Do you think the location where you guys were coming? I ask this because I'm here in DC area. I must have seen you guys 3-4 times right around the 2004-2005 area. Mm-hmm. Like we'll talk about later, you guys released this amazing documentary. Was it hard being up north, traveling throughout the states with this grueling schedule in the bus? Is that what started putting strain on the group? That some of the guys just maybe just they were realizing it wasn't for them?
Well, I don't know. We never really toured in buses so much. We're mainly a van.
No, sorry. Band. If I said bus, I meant van.
That's fine. But there is for listeners out there is a huge difference. Touring in a van is not for everybody. It is very, very hard. Touring in a bus is very expensive. We have done bus tours when they were. It was reasonable within our budget and the situation. Ozfest in 2007 was kind of or was that 2008?
I'm trying to. I think it was
07.
I think it was 2007.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was 2007. We toured in a bus. We shared a bus, to cut costs. But that's one of those tours where I won't get into the specifics why, but and a lot of it has to do with refuge from the elements and so forth.
Oh, it's brutal those days.
Those are the kind of tours where there's a lot of night drives. You need your sleep, and if you're not, then you're pretty much shooting yourself in the foot in terms of jeopardizing your performance or whatever. But getting back to the point at hand, I think I don't know if it was necessarily the vehicle thing, but just being in a touring band is not for everybody. It's really hard slogging it out, especially in those early days when you're paying your dues. You're not making much money. You can't really afford to have crew unless you've got buddies who are willing to work for basically nothing or chump change. Just a per diem, like $5 bucks a day here and there, and a lot of hard lessons learned. But even before we were at that point of promoting Advanced and Vanquish, there's just guys who just either weren't cut out for it, and we had to, make some changes, or it was people who were just, their hearts weren't into it. They didn't want to. They were already getting fed up with the business aspect of things. They had other ambitions and what have you, and that's mostly what it's been with people who've been in this band and then left. They just weren't into it for whatever reason or another. They liked playing the music, but they had other things on their mind, other ambitions. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to be away so much. Only one guy we've ever had to fire, but it's not for everybody. That's really what it boils down to.
I could imagine it. you had just joined the band, years earlier. Had prior to the tours around here, had you even done any major touring like this?
Nothing that I'd call major anyway.
Okay.
I'd done a couple of tours down the West Coast with a couple of different bands, so I still didn't really know what it was all about. We were all pretty green. We'd done little bits of DIY touring now and here and there, and that sort of gets you prepared a little bit. But until you're on a tour with, a bigger band and see the way their production is and their crew and just kind of learning the ropes and learning not to be so green and learn to know your place, be appreciative for what you're getting because you're getting good exposure.
Yeah, and in fact, the first time I met you, it always stays with me. It was at Jack's in Springfield, VA. It's now a different name, but I walked in and you were selling your shirts, and if I talked to you for 30 minutes, you were more than willing to talk to me.
Why not?
You have to be there anyway, right?
Regardless of whether I'm at the merch table or what, like we're usually hanging out. What are we going to do? Just sit in our van or this dressing room, or even if there is a dressing room, sometimes there just isn't. But we're out and about. We're there to hang out and meet people and interact and on and off stage. So when you're not at the show, when you're not at the venue, when you're not on stage, can be really boring. A lot of touring is just driving. So to have that interaction with people is that's part of why we do it, because you're there to see us play and we're there to entertain you. So yeah, we want to talk to you and hear what you had thought about the show and what your favorite songs are and kind of like say, oh, sorry, when you say like, oh, why didn't you play this song? I love that song, and be like, oh, maybe next time.
Yeah, I've still never seen you guys play Revenge is a Vulture.
Yeah, and we've done that on lots of tours. Probably, I don't know when the last time you saw us was, but we've played it fairly recently, I guess. Maybe not the last tour we did. Maybe the one before it. And and that's another thing we like to keep in mind is we may do a set list that is the same for a whole tour, but then we're usually pretty mindful of songs we haven't played on it since the tour before. So we'll throw in some songs and then we'll put some on the shelf, and there's ones we always keep in there. And that's just stuff we're conscious of ourselves. We don't have to necessarily always ask the fans hey, we're going to do an online poll. Tell us, you pick our set list for this tour. And that's a cool idea. We just haven't actually done that. But, sometimes people are like, oh, are you playing this song tonight? And I'll be like, I'm not sure, and because I don't like to give away too much about what's
I never look
beforehand.
My partner George, who I normally do the podcast with, he will look up a set list and then he'll put the whole set list on his iPod and do some concert prep.
Yeah, right.
I said, no, George, you want to know, when we saw King Diamond a couple weeks ago, I said, George, I was so hyped to see Abigail. I was excited. I was looking forward to it. He didn't even fucking play it. But George knew that was going to happen. I like that waiting, and then, hey, if it happens, it's a great moment. If not, hey, it doesn't happen.
Well, one of the benefits we have sometimes of being a band at our level is when we're doing a tour, if we're not doing a headliner, sometimes we will get those days off from the main tour where we are doing our own headlining shows. So we'll prepare headlining sets. We'll prepare 30-minute sets, or we'll know in advance usually of how long our set's going to be for a whole tour. And some nights it'll change. Sometimes you'll get an extra 5 minutes. So be like, okay, we'll throw this song in. So there's always songs that we're kind of rotating usually as well. And we'll say, okay, we'll play this one tonight, or that one went really well last night, so we'll do it again, or someone wants to hear this song. We didn't play it the past couple of nights, so we'll hear this one, like fans will say, "Oh, are you gonna play this?" And we're like, "Well, I don't know, maybe." And then someone will come in the dressing room and be, "Hey, there was a guy who's asking if we'll play this song," so we'll do that. So sometimes we do those little requests, and maybe they won't necessarily know that we threw it in the set list because of them, but if there's people listening who have ever asked us that and we have ended up playing, then there's a decent enough chance that we put it in there because somebody asked.
And you know what? Maybe one night just working into like a 3 inches of blood bit of your own little medley. Just rock in like 3 or 4 songs into one.
We've never actually done anything quite like that. The only thing similar would be we've thrown in a piece of a Rush song here and there. Into like the end of a song and then leading it into one song into another. So
now going with your songs here, maybe I have read the lyrics and interpreted them wrong. If I have, great. I recommend everybody listening to follow you on Instagram, follow you on Twitter @CamPipes. Reason being, me personally, I like you. I'm a tabletop gamer. I have been playing D&D for years. Is the subject matter, is it you putting your own hand in it with the fantasy world that you spend your free time sometime involved with?
Well, I've been asked before if D&D influenced my lyric writing, and I'm going to have to say no, because I've never been the DM when I've played D&D. I've always been a player, so I've never been in control of the story of any of the campaigns I've been involved in. Maybe some of the imagery within the game, or just words, way the DM has described certain stuff, maybe that's influenced me indirectly, but I've never written a song based on any D&D campaigns, and that that probably will surprise some people, but
I'm learning something new there. I never would have known that.
And it's not that I am opposed to anything like that. It's just the campaigns I'm usually involved in are very open-ended. There's not usually any endings. Players come and go. DMs change their mind on what rule sets they want to go with, and we're going to try a different world this day. Everybody roll up a first-level character, which is kind of annoying because I hate playing first-level characters. They're so way too vulnerable.
Very much so.
It's the amount of them trying to keep it interesting, or maybe they just want to grab something new.
Have you had a chance to look at the new rule set that came out? I know you play, you still play 2nd edition, right?
Yeah, I started playing 3.5 about 10 years ago. Did that for a while. Then the guys I play with decided to switch to 4th edition when it came out. Did that for almost a year. They weren't really feeling it too much, so we reverted back to 1st edition AD&D, and that's pretty much the basis of what we play now, except for the DMs kind of throwing in their own little rules here and there. But I have guys they'll revert back to OD&D and or something that's not even necessarily a traditional like D20 rule set, but they just kind of do their own thing, and there's you'll only use like 6 or 12-siders sometimes, like there's not even D20s involved, but it's all role playing still.
Now, going back to obviously the music here for the band, when you guys released your 2 albums, right? I say in the middle of where your most recent Long Live Heavy Metal, Fire Up the Blades and Here Waits Thy Doom. From avid fan of you guys, it seemed those were records where you guys were kind of not trying to find your footing, but trying to find the sound or the direction of the group. Is that a correct statement to make for those albums?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We've never really approached our songwriting in terms of a direction we're going for or an idea. It's always just been, we'll go to the jam spot, we've got some riffs, let's see where they go. and we just stick with what we liked. We never. That's really the only way to put it.
Okay.
It's really not really much to elaborate on it other than that. We don't think about repeating ourselves or wanting to emulate past success of some sort. We're not going in there thinking like, oh, we need to write another Deadly Sinners or something like that. So we've always been very, we're doing what we like. And for the most part, we've been with labels that are supportive of that for the most part. And, any, creative control that has been tried to be exerted other than by anyone in the band has been met with much resistance and sometimes a little hostility. And it's always been like, okay, they back off. So, because we're like, you heard the demos the way they are, and we haven't changed the songs from demo to recording the master, and now you're saying you want something different. So the middle finger goes up, and then they back off and say, okay. But luckily that's only happened like once or twice.
Wow. Now, fast forward here, we are at Long Live Heavy Metal. You guys' most recent album came out a couple years back. Even though Advance and Vanquish is my favorite, I think Long Live Heavy Metal is your guys' years of experience now is definitely shining through. This is a perfect 10 out of 10 in my book. The song Look Out alone is amazing work on that. Do you have anything? It sounds like, again, with this album, you guys just went to the studio and just decided you were going to sit down and just do a kick-ass album, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was an album that was written probably faster than any other record we've done before, and probably recorded a lot quicker than any records we've done. And
I would not know it by listening to it.
Yeah, I can't explain why, but it's just kind of what happened. We were writing it in the fall of 2011, and it was we were in a very cold rehearsal building. And it's just one of those things. I mean, we did kind of set out a rough guideline of when we wanted to be in the studio, and there was a little bit of a crunch. It was a little bit stressful at times, thinking about like, okay, shit, we got to finish this up. We got to go into the studio. We wanted to have songs done by the time we hit the studio. If not, have them done by the time we started pre-production. There were a couple of skeletons that were still, hadn't been totally fleshed out by the time we hit pre-production, and they weren't 100% done by the time we finished pre-production. There were lyrics that I was still writing while the guys were laying down the bed tracks for the, with the drums and all that stuff. So there were a couple of songs that I had. By the time I was ready to go, all the lyrics were done. I just hadn't necessarily arranged a couple of songs, how they, I hadn't really arranged them with the music quite yet. The Lookout was one of them, actually, and those were songs that I just kind of like, okay, this is what I think I'm going to do, and I've just kind of went for it.
Let's go for it.
So with a little bit of trial and error and figuring out, okay, that kind of vocal pattern and that melody doesn't really quite work. And Justin actually was pretty instrumental in helping with the way some of the vocals were arranged on that one. And Men of Fortune being the other one. That was like the last song that we wrote before going into the studio, which was probably the way it turned out was probably the big surprise of all. But, those last two, like, we just kind of, we didn't think too much about like, oh shit, like we're really pressed for time. And, we were making good progress, like when it came down to actually laying down those newer ones that were, a little less familiar, but, we're very pleased with how they turned out, and we're, ecstatic with how the whole record turned out. It was just very surprising at the overall result, and I think we all thought we made our strongest record, and it wasn't this like crazy like ups and downs that like struggle to get the thing done, and it was just kind of it was what it was, and it turned out really cool.
Yeah, not to say I lost faith in you guys. I along with a bunch of fans I talked to, right around the time Jamie left and stuff, we were like, God, does 3 Inches of Blood, what will they change into? Will they change? Will they still even be around? Was that talked about when Jamie left, if you guys still go on?
More so in the aspect of, like, how are the fans going to react? And from the time Fire Up the Blades came out, Jamie first started getting his, voice problems about the time we were recording Fire Up the Blades, and then subsequently toured right after it was done. From when it was done to when it was released, there was about a 6-month gap. So we toured for about 3 months straight right after we recorded, just because we had these good opportunities come up. And then it was in that time that we got offered Ozfest, and then these issues started coming up with, Jamie's having trouble with his voice, and saying, I don't think I should tour for a little while, I should like recoup. So Justin, like a champ, just said, fuck, I'll do it. He'd sang in bands before. I'd been in bands with him before where he'd sang, so I knew he was able to do it, because he's, he just said he had to practice a little bit doing guitar and vocals, and being able to do these complex riffs and do some of the vocal patterns. I needed to, some stuff I needed to take on a bit of Jamie's parts too, but did it in my own sort of way. But we adapted, and we did really well, I think. And after it became clear, like, well, Jamie's not going to be doing this for a while, if ever again. And we just kind of soldiered on, not really thinking too much about it, because we thought we were doing fine. We weren't struggling. People were like naturally curious about where he was and how he was doing, and if he was coming back. We're just like, yeah, this is what's going on. And the reactions were very encouraging, though. And they're saying, well, we like his vocals, we miss him, but you guys certainly sound great still. So that was validation enough when it finally came down to Jamie saying, look, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this anymore. And we said, okay.
Yep. Now,
that's the way it is.
Now, you mentioned at the start of that answer there that, you were a little worried what the fans think. We see it every year. Most recently, in news a couple months back, when Opeth was getting ready to release their album, they said, hey, this is like a 70s prog sound, and hey, honestly, we're going to play whatever we like to play. Have you, as an artist, and now, in the band, are you afraid, or are you apprehensive of trying something drastic or new for what you guys may want to do in the future?
Not really. I used to be about the way certain song ideas were presented. I used to think like, oh, well, that's not really, our style. That's a little more outside the box. But, ultimately, we wanted to give it a shot. We didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves into sounding a certain way. I mean, I think you can listen to all our records and think and find like, okay, that's, it's 3 Inches of Blood, but yet each album is kind of has its own sound in a way. So some people have heard some songs that may be a little bit different, like like Infinite Legions on Fire Up the Blades has like lots of blast beats. That was just something that that was another song we were just kind of wrote in pre-production, and we needed some more songs. So someone just started jamming out a riff, and just things kind of went from there, and it ended up being more of a fast kind of, well, like it's blast beats. Like we don't really, we're not really known for doing blast beats.
No.
Yeah. And then you've got a song like Preacher's Daughter off Here Waits Thy Doom, which is very more, rock and roll, a little more, I don't know. But it's definitely something that stands out from songs on that record and even on any other song we've done. So, but then people will tell us, "Oh, I love this song. This is my favorite song off that record," or "This is my favorite song that you've done." So, from a whole song, even little ideas like Justin wanting to bring in some keyboards, that never really bothered me. I've always liked the sound of keyboards. I know the kind of place he was coming from when he first said, "Oh, I want to put some heavy keyboards in here, a la John Lord, Deep Purple." So I was like, okay, that'd probably sound pretty cool. So we've always tried. We've ended up putting some on the past few records, and people responded well to it. So nothing's really backfired and blown up in our faces in that respect. So
yeah, why? And they're thinking about speaking about songs throughout the disc. Why hasn't the NHL contacted you guys to have "Leave It on the Ice" be the anthem for the frickin' NHL?
Well, how they, this whole debate about taking fighting out of the game is one of the.
What is your personal take on it?
It's gotta be there. It's part of the entertainment value.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's yeah. I mean, it's something no other sport really has. And when it happens, it's not like, oh shit, they're like, you're like, yeah, okay, fight, and it's usually pretty short anyway, which kind of sucks. But it really gets the crowd amped up. It gets the team amped up. That's another reason why they do it. I mean, I don't really like the staged fighting where they're just kind of like, okay, are we going to do this? Exactly. We're going to do this. I like it, the fighting to be a result of something like a dirty hit, or like, you slew foot the goalie or something like that, and then a fight breaks out. Then it's like, retribution. It's not just like, okay, let's give these guys a show, or we need to get our teams fired up. So hey, let's you and me fight. Yeah, I mean, I still like seeing it regardless, but the motivation or the reason behind a particular fight may not be quite.
Hey, I don't have a problem watching stupid George Peros get his face bashed in a couple times.
Yeah, there's some guys who you just like to see go at it.
Over the years, I guess a couple more questions. I'll let you go. The music industry as a whole has totally changed. With it way better than I do. Now we live in this age where people. Except, it seems metal fans, but people are buying singles here. They're doing streaming stuff. What is your whole take on where the industry is going now? And are you guys on board with whatever? Ultimately, you're at the record label's discretion, right?
Mm-hmm, I guess so. Honestly, whatever our next release is, I kind of hope it doesn't come out on CD.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I don't really see the point anymore. People are just they're either going to download it, or they're just going to rip it on their computer and throw it on their iPod or whatever. And like how many people who listens to CDs at home anymore? I mean, I don't have a CD player in my house.
Nope.
How many people unless you're just listening to it on your computer, which you don't really need to have the CD for there unless you throw it on your iTunes and then you shelve the CD, right? So it's kind of seems like a pointless bit of manufacturing now, when you can cut down on that cost and just do the digital download or stick with the vinyl. I'm a big fan of vinyl.
So am I.
So I like having that. There's always cool stuff you can do with vinyl, with special packaging and limited edition kind of stuff. So I think I like that kind of thing. But, people are still going to grab it off their computers in some form or another. And now I know there's a lot to be said about having the physical packaging and, the artwork and all this stuff. And I totally agree with that. But I mean, that's where at least the vinyl kind of maintains that aspect, at least.
Better sound quality, yeah. And you get the download copy when you want to take it on the go, and you got the nice audio quality when you're sitting there at the house and you want to look through it on the couch.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of where my stand on it. Okay. As long as the vinyl's still there, that's always going to be something cool. And even if people are just like, oh, but I don't have a record player, and then it's like, well, it comes with a download card, which most of the time it does now. It's like, you got a record player, you at least got the artwork, you got something cool to look at, and maybe, especially like if you get a record early on in its release, then sometimes the first press will be on like colored vinyl, or it'll be like hand numbered, or picture disc, or something special about it right off the bat.
Now, will we ever see Advance and Vanquish on vinyl?
Yeah, it's been Advance and Vanquish and Fire Up the Blades we've been sort of working on it with a label from Winnipeg, Manitoba called War on Music. They re-released Here Waits Thy Doom on vinyl. They released Battle Cry Under Winter Sun, our first record, on vinyl for the very first time. It had never been on vinyl before, and they were in talks with Roadrunner to do the other two. But Roadrunner's a very frustrating label to work with, I know firsthand, and not being on the label anymore, they're still, it's just not high on their priority. They've given the okay, but there's all this like red tape and paperwork they got to deal with. So whoever, just people cause I let the War on Music guy deal with it. He's basically reached a standstill where he can't get a hold of the people at Roadrunner that he's been trying to deal with. So I've even tried to help him out and say, like, drop the guy a line, and to no avail. So it's kind of like it's gotten the green light, but then there's just
still tied up in red.
There's some red tape that's being delayed. So this hasn't been going on for a while, and it's really frustrating because War on Music wanted to do release all the records like as a package,
nice.
Do some kind of collection with it, but he was waiting for to get the go on manufacturing of the two Roadrunner records first to really make that happen, and then he was going to do it all. So people are asking about it, and yes, they will happen eventually. It's just a matter of
just gotta wait. Yep. So as we sit here talking right now, where does 3 Inches of Blood stand now for any new album, new tours, or anything? We're dying to know.
Yeah, right now the band's sort of been on a break for most of this year. We decided earlier this year that we just needed to take a break for a little while. We've been at it so long, going hard, that we just kind of needed a breather from the music and just kind of take a break. So I don't know. We'll see. We're not really sure. There's no set time as when we're gonna start getting back at it. But we've done the odd show as our Rush tribute band here and there. So that's something that we'll do every now and then.
Certainly not hanging up the leathers, though, right?
No, I wouldn't say that at all. It's some people feeling burnt out and just don't really feel like writing at the moment. And
hey, if the heart and passion is in it right now,
Yeah, it's just we want to be like, we don't want to just shit something out and say, oh, here you go. We want to actually like be feeling it, and it's something that we just need to recharge our batteries on for the moment.
Yeah, because you guys were the definition of road dogs there for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
You're
right.
It was just saying. Last, couple of, just one last thing here. Earlier this year, and I'll include the links in the show notes here. You guys released an amazing documentary, and I've watched a bunch of these. 3 Inches of Blood, Warriors in the Great White North. How was that whole experience filming that followed you guys around?
That was really interesting. We've never really had somebody travel with us for any purpose other than working for being like a road guy, like a sound guy or tour manager, that kind of thing. We just our buddy Tom McLeod, he just one day was like, hey, I want to make a documentary about you guys, and we're like, oh, okay. What are you thinking? And he's like, yeah, I want to follow you guys on a tour. And we're like, all right. So the more we talked about it, the more it seemed kind of like a neat idea. And he's just like, yeah, I just want to make a documentary on you guys. And it was totally his thing. He did a little bit of crowdfunding for it, and say, okay, well, why don't you just come out on this Canadian tour? So he flew out east and met up with us in Quebec, and then just drove home with us from east back to west, and it was on a really cool tour. It was a really cool time for us, especially in terms of our hometown hockey team. That was during their Cinderella run through the playoffs, which ended quite.
I was not going to say anything, but I was not going to say anything.
Yeah. It's not, even to this day, sportscasters here kind of refer to it as, well, that time. And but anyway, yeah, it was a really neat time. It was
as long as you didn't take a brick through a window,
No, I live far from downtown, but I could see the smoke rising from downtown. It was interesting. But yeah, it was pretty rough. But no, the tour itself was great. We were on tour with an awesome band, Cancer Bats, and one of the funner Canadian tours we've ever done. So I think it was a good one for Tom to join us on. We didn't give him, and it, like I said, it was his thing. He wanted to do it, and he gave us some power of editing ability over it. If he would do a draft, and then we'd watch it, and he's like, if there's anything you don't like, anything about the way you're being portrayed, then absolutely. So that was really cool. So, but ultimately it was his thing, and he did it, and then. But he wanted us to be involved still at on a creative level, and on a distribution level as well. He didn't want to go out and try and make a bunch of money out of it. That's why we just kind of got it out there and put it up for $5.
Yeah, I'll put the link there for everybody. $5. The thing that strikes me about this is the like a traveling junior hockey team. The camaraderie between you and the guys is just, it shines through in that.
Yeah, we're a pretty tight-knit bunch of guys. We've, a lot of bands might not get along or, have fistfights and what. We've never been really like that. We've always been pretty level-headed. We have our opinions, but we all face the same hardships while we're out there, but we all persevere, and we know how to settle our differences pretty quickly and talk things out, and we know we're all doing it for the same greater good. And that being, our performance and our fans and so forth.
Well, Cam, with that, I'll let you go, brother. I truly, from joining me here in the podcast, to me personally, is my favorite singer today in metal. Thank you for giving me your time.
No problem. Appreciate you having me.
And again, guys, follow Cam on Twitter. Follow him at Cam Pipes. Follow him on Instagram. He's very responsive. I've tried to talk crap to him about USA hockey, and he always puts myself in my place and stuff. So Cam, thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.